I guess you could tell right from the title that this is going to be a short video. I mean, the ad line for the original board game is "a minute to learn." The story is that Othello is a Moorish general in a Christian city, and he's deeply in love with his wife Desdemona. But his jealous subordinate Iago poisons his mind with rumors of her infidelity, and that leads to tragedy. Joking aside, the board game Othello does take its name from the play. The game's Japanese creator, Goro Hasegawa, picked it as a reference to the racial themes in Shakespeare's play. Hasegawa tweaked the rules of an old board game called Reversi, and more importantly to Othello's success, I think, designed the modern board in pieces. The rules of the game are very simple. The game takes place in an 8x8 grid, and it starts with alternating black and white pieces in the center 4 squares. Then each player, starting with black because that's how Go is played, puts down a piece of their color so that a piece of the opposite color is sandwiched between 2 of their color. You then flip over all the pieces in between, and that makes them the player's color. If you can't flip any pieces, then you have to pass your turn. If both players have to pass, or if the board fills up, then the game is over, and whoever has the most pieces on the board wins. The board game was an enormous success, so naturally home versions followed. In fact, there's dedicated Othello systems, including ones by Nintendo and Sega. This particular version of Othello is actually the second release of this game. Othello was originally a Famicom disk system game that later got a cartridge release. That's only going to happen 3 more times, and it's going to be very late in the system's life. The other interesting thing to mention about Famicom Othello's development is that it's the return of HAL Labs. We haven't seen them in quite a while, not since Lot Lot. They've actually been hard at work at a few other games over on the Famicom disk system. This is the only Famicom game published by Kawada. In Japan, they're best known for making the knockoff version of Legos. We're definitely at the height of the Famicom boom now, with any company that can assemble a software team rushing in to try to get rich quick. So let's talk about how this version of Othello plays, and it's fine. Othello's not a particularly complex game, which made it a popular game to model in early computer science. And you can make a pretty robust Othello AI on not very strong hardware. The game isn't quite solved yet, but I think that's because AI research into it has kind of tapered off in recent years. Which is a roundabout way of me saying that the Famicom's AI is pretty good. Definitely smart enough to give a decent human player a run for their money. The difference between the level 1 and the level 4 AIs is how far down the move tree it searches before it settles on a move. Which means that the level 1 AI doesn't make bad moves. It just isn't looking 5 or 6 moves ahead like the higher levels. I can give you some general Othello strategy tips. Othello is really a game of area control. And regardless of the board state in the first 2/3 of the game, it's the last few moves that actually determine the score. The edge of the board is the strongest position, and the corners are the absolute strongest, as they can never be flipped. You can do pretty well by just trying to deny the opponent the edge of the board. I played 2 matches of Othello while recording this video, one on the easiest difficulty and one on the hardest. The easiest did pretty well against me, but the hardest was a real duel until it took up a strategy in the end game where it just denied me moves until I was forced to play a bad move. These days, there's better ways to play Othello. But there's also nothing wrong with the Famicom version. It's exactly what it says on the box, and it does it well.